as the story is told, he said, well, if you know so much about this business, why don't you just buy the motorhome part from me?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a beautiful day here in Miami, Oklahoma. Did I say it right?
Miami is what the locals say.
Sitting across from me right now, we have two very, very special guests on the channel. Across from me is Karl Blade and Kernan. Karl, you're the owner of Newell Coach or founder. How would you refer? What's your title?
Well, I was the owner for several years. Now we're branching out and bringing some young blood into the organization because I'm getting up there in years and we've got to plan for a transition, and we're in the process of doing that. It's working smoothly.
So you started Newell Coach?
Not really. Mr. Newell started in 1967, and he'd gone to California. He bought a motorhome that was built by Streamline Trailer Company. And they built mostly trailers, very much along the Airstream aluminum-bodied idiom. And the owner of Streamline wasn't very happy with the motorhome business. Mr. Newell came driving through town, and he was a motorhome guy. And he bought a Streamline motorhome, drove around California for a week or two, brought it back, and was making some suggestions to the fellow that owned Streamline. The guy wasn't taking these suggestions very well. And as the story is told, he said, well, if you know so much about this business, why don't you just buy the motorhome part from me? And Mr. Newell says, well, the story is that by the end of the day, they had a deal. And Mr. Newell packed up the parts, took a couple of half-finished motorhomes, put them on the road, brought them back to Miami, Oklahoma, and Newell Motorhome was started.
Wow. So when did you start with Newell Coach?
Mr. Newell suffered from some ill health for a while, thought he was going to die. He sold it to my predecessor, Chuck Goldenberg, in '73. Chuck spent 6 years in the business, didn't particularly care for it. And my wife and I just came stumbling through town. We were motorhome people, and we'd heard about this rear-engine diesel motorhome, which was pretty unique in 1979. And we went in and talked to Chuck, and I picked up on the fact that Chuck wasn't very happy. So we came back and started negotiations, and within 3 months we owned the company.
For a little over 40 years now.
It's gone fast.
Wow. And sitting over here to your left, my right, is Kernan, General Manager of Newell. And we're going to do some more videos, but I want to hear more of Karl's story. Real quick, though, Grant, how long have you been with Newell?
Just over 8 years.
What are some of the biggest changes you've seen in the RV industry?
The things we've carried forward with, which are still the key to the business, I think I could cite 3 principles that we've adhered to. First of all, the rear-engine chassis, the rear-engine diesel chassis, was totally unique in 1979. Motorhomes sold to the public were front-engine. Gas motorhomes are on Dodge 440 chassis, fairly lightweight. And Bluebird was the only exception, and they were building on a pretty heavy diesel-powered school bus chassis that was front-engine, noisy and underpowered. And I was a Bluebird dealer at the time, in addition to being in the Chevrolet business, which I grew up in. Bluebird that we were driving through Miami, Oklahoma, was heavy, very noisy, and it was top of the line as far as what most people saw in a motorhome, because it had air brakes and much heavier built. And understanding the Bluebird business and how easy these motorhomes were to sell, I took a look at this Newell product, and I thought, this is a bird's nest on the ground. All it needs is the right kind of management and product development, and it's got a market all its own. From there, it's just kind of unfolded a year at a time, innovation at a time. But we're still building on it. Basically the same, much upgraded rear-engine diesel chassis. The second thing is that Mr. Newell felt strongly that he needed a direct connection to his customer. He needed to sell the product directly. so that before he built something, he understood what the customer wanted, and the customer understood what Mr. Newell could build for him. And to this day, we operate on that principle. The customer comes in, and we design the motorhome around the preferences of that customer. And there's no salesman in between, no dealer in between to filter back and forth if things wrong. The third thing is customer service. You have to have, when you're in this league, superlative customer service. And if you get too big and you have dealers, it compromises the ability to deliver that kind of service.
What are some of the other things that differentiates Newell Coach in customer service from anyone else? I have a lot of Newell Coach owners as clients of mine, and the Newell Coach owners just rave about customer service. What's some of the things that you guys do that gets you such a great reputation in the RV industry?
Well, we're available to the customer, directly to that customer, 24/7. Normal working hours, of course, our service department fields calls, organizes the support we need to provide for whatever the issue is. Evenings and weekends, we have a 24/7 service hotline, and customer calls in, and we'll get a tech who understands that particular system or that particular issue on the phone with that customer. Our standard goal for returning a call is 20 minutes. This could be on a Saturday night, but if we've got a customer in trouble, we want to get somebody working with them right away. That's just key. That's just key.
And I'll add to that. I think in a video where I interviewed Mark Martin, he mentioned that he called you guys at like 1 o'clock in the morning on an Easter Sunday or something, and you guys came through for him. So I'll leave a link in that video in the description below. Is that only for coaches that are under warranty, or is there a time frame? I mean, if a coach is 15 years old, will you guys still take the customer service call, or how does that work?
Any coach that's got the Newell name on it. And we don't care if it was, well, we care. We care if the customer bought it from us, but if a customer bought the coach used from a third party, not a problem. We'll do what we can. If the customer, I see the service log every morning, and I see a lot of calls from coaches that are 15 years old, 20 years old, 25 years old. As they get older, it's a little more difficult for us to extend the service because we're not doing the volume of service on a 25-year-old coach that we do on a 5-year-old coach. But we're still there for them, and we'll do what we can, and it is highly successful in getting that customer taken care of. Regardless of the age, we never charge a customer for that support.
Wow, that's incredible. I don't know of any other motorhome manufacturer that has that same setup, or I haven't heard of anybody, so that's really, really incredible. What are some of the other things that Newell Coach is in a class by itself? What are some of the other things that you guys do that put you so far ahead of all the other manufacturers?
Well, fundamentally, we're the only motorhome in this class that builds on our own proprietary chassis and body. All of our competition starts with a bus shell. And that bus shell is what it is. It's a front door. It's got a certain interior geometry to it, and very little of that can be changed. And it's also engineered primarily to be a passenger bus. So the compromises that are made, the decisions that are made with a bias toward that bus operator who wants to carry 51 passengers economically. Our customer is different and has a different set of preferences than that bus operator. Just for example, the bus conversions are all limited to 500 horsepower diesel engine. Well, that's for fuel economy. The Newell buyer wants all the power we can put in it. He wants to pull those hills and not slow down. So we use 600 horsepower engine.
Is it the Cummins that you use?
Currently, Cummins is actually the only manufacturer of an engine in that class in the United States, and that's largely because of the EPA rulings and so on. Cummins has a 600 horsepower certified engine. Caterpillar's gotten out of the over-the-road truck engine business completely. Detroit Diesel is limited now to the companies that are associated with Daimler. So Cummins is the only game in town.
The design in this coach is just over the top incredible. You guys are just nailing it with your design. Every newer Newell coach I've been in, I'm just impressed. So many different designs. What's your secret to being so cutting edge? I know you probably don't want to share that many trade secrets, but what's some of the things that make your design so cutting edge?
Well, it's the talent of Grant's wife and my daughter, who work with every customer, and our design studio is like walking into the studio of an interior decorator who would do a $10 million house. You have all these selections, and then they keep track of what's going on in the overall world. Houses, yachts, and so on. And our customers often bring us ideas. So we're constantly bringing in new materials, new design ideas, and putting them into the mix. It happens kind of naturally. We just don't go out someday and say, hey, we need a new innovative interior. The next coach is going to have some innovations in it that the last coach didn't. The fact that we are built from the ground up for a single purpose, that is to be a motorhome, and the fact that we build them each custom, we can include a lot of features that are just impossible to get in either a bus or in a production motorhome. So the interior layouts are basically from a blank sheet of paper. You want a larger galley, you want a king-size bed rather than a queen-size bed, you want a bigger master bathroom. Now, of course, you can't have all of it, or we'd have a 65-foot motorhome.
Yeah.
So there are compromises to be made, but each customer gets to make those compromises based on each customer's preferences.
I've seen all kinds of different Newell coaches, and I'll be honest, you guys definitely let your customers have full control, because I've seen some floor plans that are completely on the guy that designed it. He's the only guy that's going to like that floor plan. So
we have to be careful with that one, because most of them come back on trade. If a customer is really put together something that isn't market appealing, it become hard to sell at any price, because nobody, $600,000 motorhome is less expensive than a new $2 million motorhome, but nobody's going to spend $600,000 on something they don't like. But so we try to give them guidance, but still give them as much flexibility and some advice on what's better for resale. Right now, the half bath in the center of the coach with a full bath in the back is by far the most popular. So if a customer wants to build a coach without a half bath, we discourage it. The other choice is to go ahead and build it without a half bath, but put a closet in the middle of the coach that's already plumbed and wired, so that when it comes on trade, we can put the half bath in it.
I've seen a couple rear bath coaches, and those are definitely harder to sell, and the bath and a halves are definitely really hot right now. Now, do you have any advice for someone? I had a gentleman reach out to me asking my advice, that he was looking at production coaches, and he was looking at this newer stuff, and I said, hold on, hit the brakes, go back 10 years, look at some Newells, and look at a 15-year-old Newell, go touch, feel it, open the basement doors, open the doors, compared to a brand new production coach. That's kind of what I've picked up just from what I've learned. Do you have any advice for someone that may be considering a production coach? Would you advise them to go back 10 or 15 years to a pre-owned Newell? Do you think that'd be a good play, or what would your advice be for someone?
Oh, of course, yeah. You get much the same quality in a 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 15-year-old Newell as you get in a new one. And you get the same quality of service after the sale, after the purchase. We definitely see our pre-owned coach as a smart alternative buying a new production line coach.
And do you notice that more of your clients pay with cash or finance, or is there, I don't know if you can answer that question, or is there, or if that's even, that may be too confidential. So.
Some buy the coaches with financing where we've helped them find a source. Others pay cash at the counter, and if there is any financing involved, we don't know about it.
Over your 40 plus years, can you think of what's the best story you have from your 40 plus years in the motorhome business?
Well, that's a tough one. We got involved in motorsports in 1982. Most of the motorsports guys, the top ranked drivers and team owners, the production coaches at that time were just too lightly constructed and not reliable enough to go on a 30 or 40,000 mile season schedule. Well, Allenser Senior was our first kind of bell cow, if you wish. We sold out 1982 Newell, and he and his wife started showing up at all the races in their Newell, and it was like having a luxury condominium right a few steps away from the pits. And they enjoyed it, and the other drivers and wives looked around, and the team owners, and thought, hey, we'd like to have a nice condominium that we could move from track to track. And that business grew very nicely for quite a while. And motorsports became probably our single best market. Back in the day, maybe 20% of our business, 25% of our business in the 80s and 90s was in the motorsports area.
Wow. If you go to any racetrack, you'll see Newells all over the place and all kinds of NASCAR owners and race car owners.
We put that market together one coach at a time, starting in the early 80s. Kind of slowly grew. And we had our foot in the door by the time the other manufacturers looked around. And then the product was such that it appealed to these gearhead racing drivers. We had more performance in a bus, had more space inside, and as we've talked about, more customization, and we could cater to what they wanted very easily.
Do you have any favorite Newell coach? Any Newell coach that's favorite to you?
The last one we delivered. That's kind of trite. I was born into the motor vehicle business. My grandfather was a blacksmith who became a Model T dealer in 1913. That dealership today sells Chevrolets. It's over 100 years old. And I grew up in the car business, and I ran the car dealership for about 10 years until I discovered these motorhome things. And at that time, we got involved in Newell, but the family's still active in the car business, and that was essential because I was already trained in many of the aspects of how this business operated. New vehicle sales, used vehicle sales, service, all those things a car dealer gets trained in. And it's very hard to gain that range of experience. It's harder in other areas to figure out motor vehicle business in some of those things that happen every day here. And of course, one of the aspects of that is we are dealing with the customer directly, just like a car dealer is, where the volume motorhome people build the product, ship it off to a dealer, and a lot of those functions are handled by the dealer. So make no mistake about it. It has been a fun run for me. When I got out of the car business and got into the motorhome manufacturing business, I thought I'd died without a head. And that way ever since.
You've built an incredible company here, and I'm just honored to be hanging out here with you. Can't thank you enough for letting me come visit your beautiful facility here. And I'm going to try to make a ton of videos. They've got so many beautiful coaches. And if you're ever in the Oklahoma area, I recommend coming by and seeing what these guys have going on. Just an incredible operation. So Grant and Karl, I can't thank you guys enough. I appreciate all of you out on YouTube liking these videos and subscribing to the channel. I hope you're all having a great day. Thanks again.